This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. You're listening to it. I hope you're having a great week so far, and I hope this is going to make your week a little better. I'm back off the road, back home, recording this in my studio in the few minutes of the day where my cat/studio assistant is not running in and yelling at me. It feels good to be home. I've got the whole studio up and running now, and once I'm done recording this, it is back to the grind. But this is important. This is a cool episode. I've got Slumberjack on the show. Straight out of Perth, Australia. I love these guys. They just finished up a giant live show tour in Australia, and they just announced that they're coming back to North America for a DJ tour next month. And they just released a full-length documentary about the making of their last EP, the Sarawak EP. And this is great timing because we talked a lot about how this EP got made. They lived in the jungle, they recorded with native tribes, and there's so much more. You'll hear all about it. But I'm going to put a link in the description of this episode where you can go get all the tour dates, the documentary, all the music. There's no one doing it quite like Slumberjack right now, so go check that out. Before we get into that conversation, I do want to let you know I'm going to throw some of their new tunes into the Back to Bangers Spotify playlist. If you're not up on that already, that's a playlist that I update every single week with music from my guests, music from myself, and just music that we talk about in these conversations. Anything I think might fit the context. It's just a fun little companion piece. If you're on Spotify, you can go check that out. I'm also going to put the link to that in the description. And if you're enjoying the playlist, if you're just enjoying the show in general, if you like this episode, the best way you can support this show and help me to make even better content for everybody out there is just by helping me spread the word. Word of mouth is how this show grows. And although I say it a lot, I feel like I can never say it enough. I've been seeing so much love out there recently for this show. It makes me feel really good, makes me feel like I'm part of a great community, and I love interacting with everybody out there. So if you're digging the show and you want to put up a post, put us in your story, or even let one of your favorite artists know that you think they should come on the show, throw it up there, tag me. I'm always going to, reply or repost or interact with your content. I love getting to know everybody who listens to this show. And don't forget, you can also hit me up directly if you want. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, my email address is backtobackpod@gmail.com. Or you can hit me up at Willy Joy or at back-to-back-pod on all social media. But for right now, let's get into this with Slumberjack. So on the day that we met up, they were actually moving out of their apartment in Los Angeles and flying to Australia that evening to start their live tour that they just finished up. So it was chaotic, it was a lot of fun, and I'm really happy we managed to connect for this one. I had only met them, very briefly a couple times before. We'd always had a good time. They always struck me as great guys. I've always liked the music. I think they have kind of a unique perspective on what they're doing. I just think they're doing it a little differently from a lot of their contemporaries. And I think once you hear this conversation, you'll sort of get where they're coming from. The new Sarawak EP is really amazing. It's named after one of their hometowns out in Malaysia. And to make this EP, they actually went and stayed there for a long period of time in a very remote rural setting. They were out living in the jungle for part of it. There's some crazy stories that we got into. I think they almost died trying to get to a certain spot. And as I mentioned, they just released that whole documentary about the making of it. We talk about making the doc, we talk about making the EP, and we talk about, their whole career leading up to this point. If you're in North America, don't forget to go check them out on tour when they're coming through your city. But for right now, this is a good one, so let's get to it. This is me and Slumberjack, back to back. Let's go. you guys have a distinction. There's only been one other person on the show who I've talked to the same day they are flying to Australia, and that person is Diplo. And he's the only
Was
other
it last year?
Yeah, it was... No, 2 years ago now. 2 years ago.
Wow.
Because the show's almost 2 years old.
I think that's when we met him too.
Oh, he did the very first episode, didn't he?
Yeah, he was. He wasn't if you see behind the curtain, I didn't record him first, but he was the first one I put out.
Nice.
I had to record some other people to make sure I could do it.
Yeah, before you record Diplo.
Yeah, exactly, man. And that guy just won a Grammy last night.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yep, with
I
Silk
didn't
City.
see it, but I definitely heard about
Well,
it.
yeah, I wasn't watching it
Yeah.
either.
Electric City, right?
Yeah. Electricity.
Electricity with Mark Ronson.
Mark Ronson, the
That's
Silk
amazing.
City project. Yeah. I don't know. How do you feel about giving out awards for music, especially for what we do, which is kind of like an underground thing? Like, it's weird to me, not that he doesn't deserve it, but it's weird to me to see Diplo win a Grammy just because I associate him
with the underground.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of his
Well, I think this
startup.
type of music's definitely becoming more popular in the mainstream, which I guess what the Grammys is associated with. But I heard someone say something really nice, which is, you can't really pick a winner for the, just getting nominated, I think is enough. I think, is it 6 nominations per
something
per
like
category?
that.
Yeah,
Four or
so
six, yeah.
so it's all the nominees are winners really, because no one, it just comes down to personal taste and choice at the end. So all the nominees are winners, and the actual winner is, it's great and congratulations, but I think that just as much credit should go to everyone who's nominated.
It's subjective to the board too, right?
Right, exactly. That's
Yeah.
always what I wonder is, the people who are actually picking. I mean, I think you can become a member of the Recording Academy,
Yeah, you
and that
can,
gives you a vote. But it's not a process I know all that well.
I mean, Virtual Self got nominated, and that to me, it's
was huge.
super incredible because literally his stuff is most like it's the most narrow in terms of niche. I think he only made it for a handful of people, a handful of enthusiasts, and the fact that he got a nomination, that to me, it's incredible.
Yeah, man. And he's a great example, and maybe we can tie this back into what you guys do is of somebody who's kind of, he came out as Porter Robinson, had a lot of success. He had a clear vision for what he was doing. And then once he got that success and he had a lot more, clout, a lot more eyes on him, whatever you want to say, he turned around and did this project that definitely no one was telling him should be his next move. You know? And I really respected that for... because once he was on that platform, then everyone takes his next move much more seriously,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And I don't know. I always felt that way about what you guys do too. Like I see a certain vision, a certain aesthetic that you stick to. All the releases seem really cohesive and like there's a greater plan. Like I think it's rare to find club music that also is extremely thoughtful. And that's what I tend to think of when I think of you guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is that intentional? I mean, I guess I'm curious about, when you sit down to write a song, do you have a concept in your head? Is it still, the music first and the concept comes later?
We have this thing that exists in our minds, which is the Slumberjack sound.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, and basically every song we release has to sound Slumberjacky. And if we write an idea and it's too pop or it's too avant-garde, we'll just, we'll say to each other,
it doesn't click. Yeah.
We need to add more Slumberjack. And we know what that is. I couldn't describe it to you.
I can't pinpoint it either.
It's like a secret language.
We know what it is when it arrives. And when the track sounds Slumberjacky, then we know it's good and we can put it out.
It's not even a language between the both of us. It's more like we just know when to agree that it works.
That's interesting.
Which is really weird because individually, when Fletcher makes an idea or when I make an idea individually, it wouldn't sound very Slumberjack. But then when both of us come together, it's the synergy that cannot be achieved anywhere else or anyhow else.
And so it sounds like you're often of a similar mindset.
Yeah.
Like, if one person says it's not Slumberjack enough, do you agree? The other person generally?
It's something that's it's definitely, I think, sometimes because as we were to write our own ideas, you get so driven by ego, but then you leave it for a couple of, time or periods. It's exactly what you need to hear. Like something Fletcher would say, it's exactly what I needed to hear, but I didn't want to hear it then because I just finished it. But then if you ask me deep down, like, sure, would you put it out right now? I'd be like, well, no.
Yeah. That's so valuable, man. I mean, I've always been jealous of, as a solo artist, I've always been jealous of having that sounding board and that other person there to kind of.
Yeah.
Was it always that way for you guys? Like when you started making electronic music, were you working on your own for a while first, or did you come together pretty quickly?
I was making electronic music for quite a while. Well, not properly.
Since you're like 14, right? 15.
Yeah, just as
that's young.
Just as a bedroom hobby.
Yeah.
I started on Fruity Loops and then switched to. Well, I started on Sony Acid Music
Yeah.
Studio. We were just talking about Sony Vegas,
Right.
the video one.
A bunch of legends started on Sony Acid. man.
It
one
was
of the best
amazing
softwares.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing software. Even Rusco was doing Sony Acid.
I didn't know
Was
that.
he not? I thought it was Audacity. Oh, no, that was Acid.
classic video where he's sitting in front of the CRT monitor.
Oh, right. In like his old bedroom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
and
20
telling you how to
quid.
make
Oh
dubstep.
my
Yeah.
God. Okay, quick sidebar about Sony Acid because that's so interesting that Rusco, which I had forgotten, used it. All the originators, like Munchi, the Moombatone kind of like originator, was on Acid. God, there's another one too.
I think just on the record was on Sony Acid,
yes,
the software.
Sony Acid. I
Not,
should be
he's
careful.
producing music on Acid.
I mean, maybe he was doing that too. But,
You never know.
Yeah, I don't think that would go as well.
Yeah, man. Sony Acid was just the jam.
I never actually used it much, but I know so many people who did, and so much like really forward-thinking music came out of it. Like, I wonder if there's something to that, if you use a quote-unquote primitive tool like that, does that somehow unlock some other part of creativity because you're somewhat limited in what you can
Absolutely,
do?
yeah.
I heard, I don't know if this is true, that the first Justice album was made on GarageBand.
Ooh.
That's where, I don't know if it's true.
I am very here for that idea. I don't know if that's true, but
I mean,
love
it's
it.
something that
I hope that's
a bunch
true.
of French guys would do for sure. You know?
Well, and even with GarageBand, there's been there's that one Usher song, Love in This Club. That I think it was Polo the Don who produced that. It's all stock GarageBand loops, unmodified GarageBand loops. Like
There's that famous GarageBand loop that's used in Rihanna's Umbrella.
I think that's more Logic though.
Oh, is it Logic? No,
It's
you're
Logic.
right. It is Logic. But
Yeah.
yeah, these
It's
stock
used in
loops get
Umbrella.
used in big songs. Dan, something about Symphony.
And whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then the Fort Minor one.
Yeah.
That one is GarageBand.
right, yeah.
Right?
Oh, you're bringing me back. I forgot
That
all
one
these.
is GarageBand.
good
But
sound.
see,
The
I
strings
love that.
and-
Like the fact that you can just take a simple loop that already exists and make something great
hit.
out. Yeah, man. I actually like that. I don't know. I think there's probably some people who would call that corny, but to me, that's
Steve Angelo took Nas. Nas was amazing. When I first
That
heard
was
Nas,
a
I thought it was
Vengeance loop, right?
That was a Vengeance loop, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was also in the construction pack. You can even
Right.
get the pre-sidechained version.
right.
But
And
it's discovery. I don't think it's really about creation most of the time. Sometimes,
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the argument is that anybody could have done that.
No, you did, but you didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah. But did you? But you not
This
you.
is the story of my life walking around a modern art gallery.
Minimalist
done
art
that.
gallery, yeah.
Yeah.
You and my dad, man. That's hilarious.
It was just a blue canvas. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you do it then.
yeah. $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you started making music really young, at least fucking around.
Yeah.
How did you even come to that at that age? Like, why was that a fun thing for you at age 14? Like, were you a musical kid?
Possibly. I remember, so when I was really young, my mum used to take me to this place in Perth, Australia called SciTech, which is like a science museum. They had a lot of exhibits around. But part of the SciTech building, there was like a music studio on the side. And on certain days it would be open, and they had this really basic software called Do Re Mix. And you could just drop in loops and make songs, and then they would print it to a cassette tape for you. And I just thought that was
amazing.
Yeah, I just thought that was the coolest thing, that I could take home like a cassette with a song that I'd made and put it on my home system. And I was instantly kind of just drawn to that idea of...
Do we have a copy of that?
Oh,
Do you need to find it, man?
That's the next single, right?
You
there.
I
need
think
to
I have
find
a
it.
digital version of...
Oh, you need to
some of the
find
stuff.
it. You need to find
It was mostly... they had like libraries of loops, and I would just grab all the canon ones. So it was like the Pachelbel canon melodies, and they all just worked together really nicely. So I think that's kind of where it started. And then I bought Sony Acid. I was also really into filmmaking. So I had the Sony Vegas studio, and slowly over time I just switched more to doing music than to doing video. Yeah.
So it sounds like you were just a creative kid in general, if that's the kind of stuff
I just
you were
liked doing that kind of, totally.
Where did that come from? Like, what did your parents do?
Mum
What
was a
their-
drama teacher.
Okay. That's a good start.
Yeah. I mean, Dad was an engineer, and I also studied engineering, so I'm very like math, science as well. But I've heard that math and science and music go together quite well as well. So
I mean, I think all of us can agree sometimes after 12 hours in the studio, I mean, it's a lot like doing math when you're mixing down a record.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, I think, Mum was we always had like a huge dress up box in the house, and she was running all the drama workshops on school camps and always just getting us to do weird creative activities, build things, make stuff. Yeah.
And did you grow up in Perth?
I spent the first 5 years in Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my parents had business over there, and
Do you have memories from that?
very few. I mean, 0 to 5 is just. Apparently, I used to speak Vietnamese fluently, as well as a 5-year-old.
There are
should.
videos of him doing it.
Really?
Yeah. Unfortunately,
incredible.
I lost everything, but I think that also probably helped with music because it's a very tonal language. And so from a young age, being trained to recognize those sort of tonal qualities probably helped as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was in Perth basically from there onwards.
Gotcha. And do you guys still maintain a place in Perth? Are you full-time living in LA now? You kind of go
We
back
still,
and forth?
well, it's very difficult. I mean, the world is not set up for people to not have a home.
It's really
everything
not.
requires you to have a
That's
home.
frowned on, yeah.
And we don't really have one place that we live because we travel so much. So we do spend a lot of time in the States because we're touring here all the time, but we also spend a lot of time back home. So it's kind of tough to say what's like our main home. But I would still say Australia is like where our home is.
Yeah.
But we're like pretty much
based-
working out of here.
Yeah, we're based in LA.
I got you. Yeah. Are you going to get a new place after this one? Like once you come back?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're going to move somewhere else in LA and try and
Somewhere where we don't have to be cramped up in this place.
somewhere with dope coffee shops with repurposed wood.
There you go.
And
That's what I
rusty
want.
iron beams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got any noise complaints here too? I would be worried about
Not
that.
even. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Surprise. We don't actually, we're quite considerate.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have no adjoining walls either. So.
Well, and Morgan, for you, when did you come to Australia? Because my understanding is you were raised in Malaysia.
Yeah, in Sarawak.
Okay.
It's a state in Malaysia. Every time people say Malaysia, I think people gravitate towards the main city, Kuala Lumpur. But it's very different from where I grew up. I moved to Australia when I was 19. 18 or 19, yeah.
Okay, so you had your whole formative teenage years in Sarawak.
Yeah, but I think moving to Australia was sort of a cultural shock to me. I kind of took 2 to 3 years to adjust to how people live and speak, and just little nuances and communication.
Well, talk a little bit about childhood, growing up where you did. I mean, because I have no frame of reference almost. And, it's interesting that, your new EP is named after your birthplace.
My birthplace,
Yeah. So, what was that experience like as a kid? Do you have any kind of, specific memories you come back to, or just kind of like flavors or scenes that you remember from your childhood?
Everything about Sarawak, for me, at a very personal level, would be taste, like food. I would still say it has the best food in the world.
Really?
We've traveled a lot together, and we've been in China, and actually China has really good culinary. The world of culinary in China is amazing, but I still kind of go back towards Sarawak, and when I eat there, it always brings this like, I'm home, right?
What kind of food are we talking about?
It's something as simple as for breakfast you can have noodles.
Yeah.
Dry noodles, and then there's like a curry broth, we call it laksa, and Southeast Asia is really popular with different laksas of different regions. If there's any Southeast Asian listening out there, I still think Sarawak laksa is the best laksa in the whole world. You can fight me on that. I'll give you my home address.
Put it out there, man.
I actually would concur with that.
Yes, boom. Yeah, many people would. Many people would. And Anthony, R.I.P. in peace, Anthony Bourdain Sarawak laksa is the best laksa to him.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a strong stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of, were you musical as a kid?
Yes.
I'm curious about what you were exposed to there versus what, Fletch might have been exposed to in Australia.
Well, I don't know if I was musical when I was younger, but I distinctly remember a moment in my life where I needed to do music, and I don't know if I told anybody on record on this before, except for Fletcher. I was sitting in I think I was like maybe 12. I started piano when I was 13. 12, I was in a house party with a couple kids. It's like a birthday party, and this boy was just playing the piano, and everybody surrounded him. For like a good second there for me, I'm just like, I wish I was that boy.
Oh, yeah.
That was it. I think maybe I was just like, maybe I had like self-esteem issues or insecurity complex.
Yeah.
The second I saw everybody gravitate towards him, I was like, shit, like, I wish I could play the piano. And he wasn't playing anything great.
Right.
I just needed to do something.
Yeah. I think probably every musician out there can relate to that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, and then it goes towards this, the idea that you want to create something and people listen to it. Or if you're a painter, you paint something, people look at it and then they understand where you're coming from, right? I don't know if it's necessarily a sense of self-expression, but there might be a slight form of narcissism in there.
I think it's a little of both. I mean, while you were talking about, I was thinking about my own childhood, and for me, absolutely, I always felt, I was an awkward kid. I never felt like
Same.
I
think all of us were.
Yeah. I think that's a very, very entertainer background in general. And I never felt like, I was fitting in or that people understood me. And then when I started doing music, exactly what you just said, I always felt like, okay, this is actually a representation of me that I feel confident in, that I want people to look at. And
It's almost like the awkwardness and the weirdness in you kind of went away.
Yeah.
Like you found your confidence in music.
That's exactly.
And that's exactly what that moment for me was. Sort of like the stars aligned, and when I heard that, when I saw what is happening, and I begged my parents to let me learn piano, classical piano, but it's not normal in the Asian community. Usually Asian parents would force the kids to do music on top of tennis and golf and painting and swimming and dentistry at age 5.
Was that a thing in the community you grew up in?
Yeah. There was, I don't necessarily think my mom is a tiger mom or an iron mom, and depending on what.
Right, I've heard that.
Strict parents, right? But we definitely had a competitive nature in the community back home, and there's a lot of Chinese community that grew up in Sarawak as well, but many different ethnicities, but still the idea that you got to be the best at whatever you do, and you could do 10 of them at the same time,
right? And so how did your parents react when you suddenly showed this interest?
Well, my dad said no, because I was doing taekwondo and martial arts and different martial arts at the time. Obviously Asian kid, but my dad's like, no, because either two things are going to happen. You're not going to be good at piano because your knuckles are so swollen from breaking wood, or you're not going to do taekwondo as seriously anymore because now you want to do music. And at the time I was also playing golf and tennis, and my dad's like, you're going to spread yourself too thin. But then I told him, he made a deal with me. I had to score a certain percentage in my exams. We have 10 exams a year.
Damn.
So 10 months in school, there's an exam every month.
That sounds intense.
So as long as I drop the ball on that month, I stop piano lessons for that month.
Oh, wow.
So that's his way of saying I got to keep up with my studies and be distracted by this new thing called music.
How did that work out?
Yeah, good. I showed him. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I showed him.
Nice.
Yeah, it was an expensive class too. I was like, oh, you're going to be paying for this one.
I love that, man. And I love the story too about, seeing the other kid playing at the piano. And it makes me think about your story, Fletch, about seeing your music on the cassette tape too, And I think all of us have had that moment where you realize how something like this could be achievable,
Yeah.
And those moments to me, I think are so formative in every young musician's life. And so, Morgan, for you then, what brought you to Australia?
It was tertiary education. It's just to get a degree.
Okay.
I think it was my dad gave me a choice between UK, the United Kingdom, or Australia, and Australia was just closer to home. It's going to be my first big move, right? After 18 years, and that's kind of scary. It's going to be, I've lived in different places, but moving to Australia is almost like a permanent thing. I knew for a fact that there is going to be a small chance for me to move back to Malaysia after that. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna. I was planning way too far ahead, like
of course.
Planning a family. I was like, if I'm going to Australia, I want to make sure like the grandkids can see the grandparents. Australia was naturally the option.
What a responsible young boy you were. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving to Australia we actually, Fletcher and I did the same university. We studied in the same university.
Where was that?
In Perth.
Okay.
So in Australia, nobody goes interstate for my college or university was
a few. You have a few.
It was 10 minutes from my house.
And that's just the thing everybody
I went
does.
to school 5 minutes from my house, and I went to university 10 minutes.
It's one of the best universities in the world too.
A couple of people from my, like literally just a handful of people went, overseas or over to the other side of the country. But mostly people just study in their city because that's just what you do.
That's what you do. Yeah. Was there any, I'm just curious because that's so different from the American system. Was there any feeling on your part of, wanting to break out, wanting to see something else, wanting to get away from the hometown?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was just, I have a really good relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
I was living at home while I was studying as well.
Revolutionary. I love the idea.
Yeah,
I really do. I'm big supporter.
And
of
honestly, a
living-
lot of my friends, tons of my friends did as well. Most of them did. They didn't really move out till after.
I think it's so valuable, man. I mean, I tell, even young kids who are sort of trying to get into the music industry, if I ever get asked, I say, live at home as
Don't
long
move
as
out.
you can. Yeah.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
your parents are cool with it, stay home.
Yeah, absolutely. All the advantages. I mean, not only obviously saving money, but you've got a support system. You're in a comfortable place where you can grow and not have to worry about a bunch of other responsibilities that...
My family is so different. I find it difficult to move away from them.
You
Which is
miss
great.
them?
No. They want me. Every time
They follow you.
I've got my own place in Sarawak. But every time I go back, like even actually this time with Fletcher, we stayed at mine because we brought a crew to shoot the documentary. But usually if I go by myself, my parents are like, "You're staying with us." I was like, "Oh, but I got my own." They're like, you have changed. You don't love us anymore. You're becoming Western. I was like, oh no, okay,
boy.
I'll stay with you.
Yeah, it can be tough. I mean, I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and sometimes I'll go back there to play a show. And, you get a hotel room as part of the deal when you go play a show somewhere. And sometimes it just makes more sense for me to use that hotel room if I'm flying in and out quickly, whatever. But I have to have these conversations with my parents where I really have
But
to.
you're home.
Right, exactly. Like it just does not compute.
I have a flight at 7. No, but you're home. Right. Oh, okay. All right.
That's just the thing over here. Like everyone always asks, "Oh, where are you from?" Whereas if you ask someone that in Australia, they'll be like,
What do you mean?
Wait, yeah. what are you talking about?
Like
Nobody
down the
moves.
street.
Yeah, nobody leaves. That's amazing. I never even thought about that. And so what were you guys going to school for? Like, what did you think at that point your life was going to look like?
I did chemical engineering.
You also have another one.
Well, and finance as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was ready to go and actually the turning point was I got offered a summer, 3-month summer program with Shell.
Okay.
And I turned it down because I knew we were going to be playing shows. And that was kind of the point where I was like, all right, music is now taking priority over studies. And I still studied like part-time for a little bit after
Like
that.
2 years.
But then it just kind of trailed off. I still have a year to go if I ever want to finish it. Yeah.
Did you enjoy school? Like, did you like what you were learning?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but you
I
have
really
the
like
degree though. You're just not the master. It's just the master.
Yeah, I have a bachelor degree.
Yeah,
just no master's.
he's
still
done
good.
with the course. He just wants a master.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I really liked that, and I would probably be perfectly happy doing that. But music's an opportunity that you don't I'm lucky to have this opportunity.
Of
Of
course.
course I'm going to take it.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, though. And I love hearing that because so often I think you hear, oh, I went to school and I hated it. And it was.
So why'd you go to school then?
Well, right. And, all of that. But I like hearing that just, you liked what you were doing. And then all of a sudden this other opportunity came along.
Totally.
And you just, you took the other path on the road.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
got
there was
here.
definitely nights where I was at uni at like 11 o'clock at night trying to finish an assignment, just going, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But,
But I mean, we still have those nights as musicians,
of course.
right?
And
Every
that's
night.
part of the
That's
enjoyment.
worse now.
Yeah, except instead of 11 at night,
And then you're
it's
like,
4
what the
in
hell am I
morning.
doing? You're still, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, Morgan, what were you studying?
Finance.
Okay.
Yeah. But you see, I was the opposite. With the second I got hit by the music bug, I was really good up till high school. And then when it came to college and university, I was already so distracted.
Yeah.
By the time it came to Australia, I saw the possibilities of music, with the power of radio. We don't really get that in Malaysia, It's very controlled and musicians don't really get a voice. And Australia, and this is shout out to Triple J, independent.
Big shout out to Triple J.
Big shout out. Independent musicians have a shot. Like a good example, Flu making, his beats on his laptop and boom, Grammy winning. And then Tash Sultana on the guitar and the loop pedal on the side of the streets in Melbourne. And, Triple J gave us a shot. And that became a huge distraction for me in university. I was good at it. I was good at what I was doing because I was good at memorizing and regurgitating the stuff I needed to do, but I wasn't in it. I did well. I did really well. I got offered internships as well. I turned them down. I think a year before Fletcher did his. But yeah, just coming up from Malaysia, it was just a huge, I was like, oh, this world is so big and the possibilities are endless now. I'm not trapped in this tiny village. Was it a
completely. Tiny village? How small are we
talking? It's a town. I think when we grew up, it was a village, when I was a lot younger. And then it started developing. A lot of expats come through.
Yep.
And
do you know approximately how many people? I'm just curious.
What is it? 200,000? 220,000.
I think it's about the size of Bunbury or Bustleton or
Yeah,
something.
like 200,000 people
Okay.
now. It started really small.
Yeah, right.
And still, like literally in terms of nightlife, there is literally one area you go. Seriously, like I go, if I'm back there every week, I go to one area.
So yeah, I was wondering that too, in terms of what music was around you as a kid. Was there any kind of electronic music at all?
Okay, so when I first got my first PC, my
Yeah.
first computer.
Personal computer.
Yeah, I was 15, I think, 16. After the piano too. We got a piano before the computer. I discovered the world I was sort of like a savvy-ish kid, coming from a place where things aren't exactly savvy for those that aren't very privileged.
Yeah, you had to do your own research.
Yes, I found LimeWire.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I started listening to, electronic music. And then my first electronic music the song was Traffic by Tiesto.
Okay.
And when I heard that super sauce, I didn't know what it was. I was like, this is so epic. 2 notes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 notes.
So simple.
It rocked my world, 2
Yeah.
notes. Whereas Chopin had to take
Yeah.
It's
that loser had to use all the notes.
Yeah, what a loser. 2 notes and a kick drum. And I was like, this is incredible. And from then on, I also don't know where I learned music production, really. Somehow in my mind, I just knew that computers were able to do this. And I knew for a fact that because I played the piano and I knew that in an orchestra there's violin, I was like, in computers you can then separate stuff. I know that for a fact. I didn't have to learn it.
Yeah, right.
So like Fletcher, I got a bootleg version of, you cannot get legit versions there, right? Internet's not fast enough, number one.
Okay.
People don't buy, at that time, people don't buy softwares online, right? You got to buy actual CDs. There were no stores. I got to go to a bootleg DVD store where they do shitty remasters of The Matrix.
Right.
And then on the side, there's computer software, and it's printed shittily. And the guy who owned the store cut the A4 paper out. It was
love
Sony Acid, and I was like, no, I'm better than this. I got the 12 ringgit package, so that's equivalent of $3, $3. I got the Sony package. I got the Vegas deal. I got the Acid, Soundforge as well. I think.
Soundforge, yeah.
Yeah. I got that, and then that's
man.
where I put 2 loops together and I was like, dude, I'm Tiesto, man.
I love that. And let's talk a little. You mentioned the culture shock when you moved to Australia, and open to either one of you guys. What was going on in Australia at that time when you guys were first going to university, first out in Perth? Musically, what was happening in the scene? What was sort of your exposure there?
So I was like 18 just, and our drinking
20.
age is 18 in
Right.
Australia. So so we were able to, I think my first time in a nightclub was for this DJ competition. And that's actually how we met. So I won the DJ competition in 2011.
Okay.
Morgan won in 2012.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So that was like my first time in a nightclub.
Your first time was when you were competing?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Crazy. I wouldn't have put my set.
Well,
my
I mean,
foot
I'd
in
probably been to like a pub or something, but
So wait, no,
yeah,
we
like-
got to talk about this, because if you won the competition without even knowing the context for which you were competing, like, had you DJ'd prior to that?
I DJ'd like house parties.
Okay.
But I'd never, that was like my first time DJing in a nightclub, and probably I'd been to like 1 or 2.
And was it like a party rocking kind of competition, or was it a technical thing?
Well,
party rocking.
yeah,
It's
it
all
was
party rocking.
just like, honestly, probably just how many friends you bring.
Sure.
To
Yeah.
how much
How much money the bar makes off you, yeah.
And I brought a ton of friends.
Yes.
But yeah, I was playing like electro house, big room kind of stuff, which is pretty funny. But so I was very new to the scene. There was like quite a strong drum and bass scene in Perth back then. Still is, like, Shock
is,
One is sort of
Well,
spearheading
yeah.
that knife party and Pendulum from Perth.
Breakfest every year. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the one, yeah.
Exactly. So there was a really kind of strong scene in Perth. And this is one of the things I love about Perth, is that because it's so isolated, there's such a tight-knit community, and there's almost like an underdog feeling. So we have to do everything double to prove ourselves.
It's a great place to cut your teeth.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So we had this thing called the Perth Dance Music Awards, and as competition, DJ comp winners, we went and got a network with the industry.
Yeah.
So that's
It's not even a
that's
thing
how we
anymore,
met.
isn't it?
No, I think the last year was the year we met, but that's how we met at that. I needed to suss the local competition.
Oh, yeah. So you went back the next year after winning.
Oh yeah, it's a top tier Perth networking opportunity. Yeah.
And Morgan, for you, had you been DJing prior to your...
No, exactly like Fletch. That was my first time on stage doing electronic
But he
music.
hadn't even DJ'd at parties.
Ever.
He didn't
That's
even know what
insane.
DJing was.
I didn't know what it was. I saw a flyer at like I think the equivalent of what's like a music store here, like a music store.
Yeah, like
it's
vintage
like a guitar
like
center.
like a
Yeah,
vintage
exactly.
King of Guitar
Guitar
Center.
Center.
I saw a flyer. That was the flyer for that competition.
Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, all right, why not? I'll join it.
He
And
made up his own version of what DJing is, because he didn't know
I don't even
about
know what it was.
CDJs
That's
or-
bad. What did you do?
I don't know what CDJs were. I had a bootleg copy as well of Ableton.
Yeah.
From my LimeWire days. I found some other ways to do it in Australia. Off the university internet. I'm sorry, University of Western
Sorry.
Australia. Sorry. I'm legit now though. But yeah, I bought 2 used launch pads on like our Gumtree or our market, like
Craigslist.
Craigslist, our Craigslist, and I just kind of plugged that into Ableton, and I was using the output jack too for the competition. My laptop's 3.5 mil.
Oh, man, amazing.
Yeah, and all I did was, I think I saw a video of Madeon doing what he did. I was like, that's DJing. I was like, that's tough though. I was like, okay, I'll learn it. I had like a month to pick up everything I needed to pick
Okay.
up. I had very little vocabulary with dance music too.
Yeah.
I just went on Beatport Top 10 and then picked the ones I really liked, and then got deeper and deeper, and I picked a few more. Yeah, and
Do you think that's why you won? Because you were doing such a complicated...
dude, I shat myself, man. I was so scared because it was 3 heats, right? I was at heat 3, I think,
Yeah.
and then a final. So I remember going to heat 1. I was like, I'm going to suss out the competition. I was like, I'm a pianist. I thought DJing was playing stuff live.
Right.
I literally thought you hit the kick drum, you record a loop, and you trigger another loop, and you play the keys, and that records. I literally thought that it was
amazing.
Never seen a CDJ in my life. I walked up to the second floor of the club, looked down, and the first guy went on. I was like, okay, that's a really interesting gear. I was like, sweet, he brought that himself. Sweet, I got my own gear. And then he walked off with a USB.
Right.
And another guy walked on and played the same gear. I was like, oh shit.
Oh boy.
Oh shit. Is it like a requirement that we have to learn how to use whatever they're using?
Right.
Like those turntable spinny things. And then I freaked out. I quickly got in touch with the organizers and I go, hey, I know my name's in, and I got drafted from the mix I submitted that I made in Ableton because I didn't really play it live. I was like, maybe I'm a fraud. I was like, shit, I don't know how to DJ. And then they go, no, just bring your gear. I want to see what you're about. And yeah, I somehow won.
That's fantastic.
Somehow.
I love that story, man. And it's we don't have to go too much about this competition, but I'm just so curious. Like, I'm sure not to talk down about your innate talent, which I'm sure was great, but who was the competition that you could go there without ever having done it before and beat everybody?
Well, I think Fletch and myself have this, even up till now,
Yeah.
I think the beauty about, again, not to pat ourselves on the back,
Yeah.
I really enjoy our mixes. I
Just always had an ear for that.
because we have this thing about, we're very, very pedantic about, mixing in key and having the right flow.
Yeah.
So, we hardly, again, and I think a lot of DJs can do this, and it's okay because we do it too. We hardly go on the fly too often.
Sure.
We like to curate a show, even if it's DJing, and make sure that it's perfect in the sense of flow and energy from start to finish.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about starting off that way, because now you guys actually do a live show as in addition to the DJ shows, right? And it's sort of funny. That's almost like a full circle moment in
Actually,
my mind.
it's two circles. But you want to start off with, you want to talk about how we actually introduced the live before we even DJ.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
terrible.
We actually started Slumberjack. Our first Slumberjack shows ever were live shows.
Really?
And we built this stupidly intricate live setup.
with a mixer too that we have to mix
Oh,
ourselves.
it was
Horrendous.
ridiculous, and it was for an opening slot.
Of course.
And there was 20 people there. No, everyone's just at the bar, and we're up there sweating balls, trying to make sure we hit everything perfectly and nail this live set because it's it's a big gig in a big club.
Fletch
Right.
had the SPD. I have the vocoder.
Oh, man.
At one point, Fletch was also DJing on Tractor, but I was DJing on Ableton, so we had to shout the tempo to each other, and then I got to
Incredible.
nudge it, he's got to nudge his, and mix. It's stupid.
And then we just realized that this is too much, and we need to actually have fans before we put this much effort into it.
Well, and now that you do, what does the live show look like now for the people who may not have seen it yet?
Yeah, so we've never actually brought it to the States.
Okay.
So it's only been in Australia. But we each have our own kind of battle station. So we got keys each. I have some drums and pads.
Fletch mainly runs hardware as well to avoid software malfunctions.
Right.
Morgs has a machine and some synths, and we kind of spread out across the stage. But the live element of the show is really cool because it gives a lot of movement and a lot of action on stage, and it means that we can kind of not have to play so high energy the whole time. We have a lot of moments where it's very, there's a section where it's just Morgs on the keys for 2 minutes. And we found that people really enjoy just watching that when they're actually seeing you play it. It doesn't have to be drop after drop. And we also make all the visuals for the show, so everything goes together exactly
you guys make
how
the visuals too?
Yeah. So
I love
we
that.
just envision the whole thing as this audio visual journey, I guess. So we have complete control over how it
We
looks.
almost exclusively play our own music too,
Right.
not just originals, edits, and remixes. But yeah, we hardly, maybe there's two to three songs that aren't ours, but we edit it and make it fit in the set, and then also make a specific visual for that moment.
That's so cool. And I mean, to me, your guys' music has a definite cinematic quality. And I don't know if that's intentional, Fletch, with your film or film interests.
Definitely.
We both just love cinematics. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it.
Do you, when you're writing music, do you think about visuals, or do you actually see anything while you're writing? I always wonder
we feel
about
it.
that.
We don't see it. I think
Yeah,
feel.
it's more of a feeling.
Yeah.
Like we associate, or I personally associate like feeling and texture with the music. Like, you know, we say like we're just writing a song where we want it to feel like you're getting hit with wind in the face, which is a weird, you know, it's sound. How
Sure.
can it? But when you hear a sound that sounds like you're getting hit with wind in the face,
You know it.
Of course. Well, and that's a feeling. Everyone knows the feeling of being hit with wind
Yeah.
in the face,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I like that because that's something everybody can relate to. If you're able to nail the idea, everybody who hears it can kind of be on that wavelength with
Yeah.
you.
But we have scenarios too. Sometimes Fletch and I will talk about a certain chord progression that, you know, isn't exactly in your minor scale or your major scale, just a weird mode. And we would talk about, you know, how it feels like the slow motion sequence of 300. You know, that fight, that iconic fight scene, or you know, or a beautiful Greek goddess coming out from like a pool of gold water, you know? and it's just that one moment, and you almost replay that scene in your head, and you realize, you know, what kind of soundscapes need to go with this visual.
And are you guys flying over to Australia right now to do live shows?
Yeah, so we have our Sarawak headline tour in Australia.
That's
Going
gotta
over
be
rehearsals.
exciting.
Yeah, we got rehearsals and a lot of stuff to do before
Man.
then, but yeah.
Because, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in Australia, I mean, you guys are very well known, right? Or, like, you do probably better there than anywhere else at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't want to toot my own horn, but
No, you should toot your own horn, man. I mean, the EP is fantastic. It's just interesting to me, that idea of, you know, being really well known in one place, and then over here in the States, you're absolutely well known, but it's sort of in a different way, right? And
different tier for
it's
sure.
definitely, and I think that's actually, it makes it quite difficult for a lot of artists to come over here because, you know, you'll play, you know, a headline slot to 10,000 people and then come over here and there's 100 people in the club and they don't really give a crap.
I mean, how about for you?
That's what it was like when we started.
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
That.
I mean,
So, you know,
is that a tough dichotomy to sort of? I mean, I would imagine it humbles you in certain ways.
totally.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
Fletch and I love challenges.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're okay with it. We knew for a fact that, you know, this is something that, you know, I guess, quote unquote, the success that we have in Australia. I'm very proud to say we achieved in a very short amount of time, and that sort of, you know, we're not as jaded.
Right.
We in our heads, we're still that little kid that got invited somehow to do an opening slot at a festival in Australia, and we're just these bunch of shy kids that was like, oh, is that like, what's so not? Should we go and talk to him? Oh, like that's echo. All right, hey, what's up, Chris? And we're still that, because, you know, it hasn't been too long since, you know, we're doing headline shows, and you know, starting out as, you know, those kids that, you know, were terrible at mixing from Tractor into Ableton.
Well, yeah, maybe that's an interesting way to talk about how did you get plugged into what was happening in Australia in the first place? You know, once you meet at university, you're making some music together. It sounded like playing some shows together while you were still there. You know, what was it like getting out there in the first place?
Honestly, our very first manager was actually the promoter of the DJ competition.
I see how this works. Okay.
And he actually pushed us out of Perth.
He pushed us hard too.
Yeah, he convinced us to spend the money and go to this thing called EMC, which is the Electronic Music Conference. I guess it's kind of like Miami Music Week, or, you know,
Amsterdam,
like whatever, ADA.
IMS.
Yeah, ADA. Sorry,
yeah.
But for Australia. So we went over there and realized, okay, there's actually a whole industry
Outside of Perth.
that backs this scene. And we met an agent over there because we played a few little shows in Perth, and
And had you been putting out music a little bit?
we put out
Online.
a terrible
SoundCloud.
EP. Honestly, I have no idea why our agent signed us, because that music was terrible.
He signed us off that shitty EP.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I hope it's off the internet. Don't go find it.
Yeah, and he
I have bad news for you.
and we're still with him. He has been with us the whole way. He wasn't even at the conference. We left the conference, walked like a mile down the road to this little pub,
Weird
and we
pub.
ordered like lemonades,
lemon lime bitters,
and he was like, "Yeah, I want to book you guys," and he put us on this terrible tour, but at least we're out there touring. You know, we wanted to get out there, and he was like, "Well, I can put you on some shows," and our manager
it's not going to be good. But
we
if
were
you
like
wanted
supporting Gold Room around Australia, but we weren't. We thought we were going to be supporting him, but we weren't really. We were just like opening every show that he was playing, but we weren't on the poster or anything.
Oh,
like,
one of those.
Yeah,
we offered ourselves for free to each club that
it was
man.
extremely sketch. We stayed in like hostels and. Man, it was real sketch. We definitely lost a lot of money doing that. But we learned that, okay, this is how it works. You fly around, you play shows, you meet people, you stay at the club and talk to the whatever. And I think people just slowly started hearing about us through our music. We put out like a popular remix of Touched by What So Not. And then Felon
Bootleg.
came out. People started actually playing Felon on the radio, and like DJs were playing it around the country. So
Right. Was
just-
that the
just
first
slowly,
record
slowly.
that kind of broke you in worldwide a little bit?
Yeah.
I think
Madeon played it too, which was a huge one for us.
Yeah.
That gave us the confidence.
Well, yeah, you were saying he was, your inspiration to learn DJing in the first place, who you were looking at.
Yeah. And the fact that we had like when we were writing that shitty EP, we're like, oh, who's gonna play this out? And it always was a fear for us to play our music out, even when we had demos.
Right.
And that fear, it's pretty much gone now. But we still like, oh, the mix is not good, and we production skills just aren't there yet.
Right.
Fill in somehow we. Again, the stars aligned. We fluked into it, and we knew the techniques you needed to use to get a record to sound as big as that. And it was more of a confirmation for DJs to be playing it. And the fact that Madeon played it, I was like, okay,
That's a good sign. Yeah.
we can. I think we can do this.
Like in the early days, it seemed like baby steps, but going from our first EP having 2,000 plays on a track.
Yeah.
Come on.
Or 2 or 3, whatever.
You still remember.
To Felon having 50,000 plays.
Yeah.
That's 25 times growth. And you're like, oh, it's only 50,000 plays. But, those small steps in the early days were, they take just as long as going from 3 million plays to, 50 million plays, which is huge. So, and I think, definitely, although it was a small part of our career, I think that first early days and the manager, the promoter, he definitely helped us realize that there was a scene, and he hooked us up with a label in Australia, which also helped us in the early days as well.
That's a great story, man. And so, continuing on, was it kind of just like a slow, steady progression from there as far as, starting to tour outside of Australia, connecting with other artists who maybe were now hearing and playing your music? Were there any kind of big moments that stick out for you, or was it more of just kind of an organic growth?
I think we're big fans of Slow and Steady because,
Same.
Not anyone, but a lot of the people who have meteoric rises also have meteoric falls.
Yes.
And anyone who's been slow and steady has kind of stayed true through
Very
time.
strong foundation.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've done. We did slow and steady in Australia. Now we're doing slow and steady in America.
Yeah. Well, so what was the first time you really started coming over here to play shows? Do you remember that?
3 years ago.
2015, right? 2016.
Snow Globe Festival.
Snow Globe.
That was the first one?
First show.
That was end of 2015. I
Okay.
think.
That's a good one to start with.
Shout out to people who believe in us in the very beginning.
that
First
was-
show in America that put us at 8 p.m. at the Sierra stage. And we played to a heaving crowd.
Yeah.
I still have videos from that night. It's incredible. And then from there, I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. We can do this too.
That's a good foot to start off on.
Yeah.
Was there any surprises playing for American crowds versus Australian crowds? Did you have to change what you were doing or how you were thinking at all?
For sure. Yeah. I think different countries and, based on, I guess, social media trends and cultures, people gravitate towards different sounds and different feels. I think America, there's kind of two sides for us, two fan bases. One really likes the heavy bass stuff, and then you have one that, I guess, again, the future bass crowd that likes the vibes, and you kind of cater towards both. But in Australia, music fans are we're proud of that. Australian fans are very open-minded. Although they could be a little bit elitist, which
Yeah.
is good. They hold the artists to a really high standard, which is a great thing. But they love all sorts of music. You know, we have fans who listen to the Architects, which is like heavy metal. And this was when we were doing Groove in the Move Festival 2 years ago. And these fans will stay for the Architects because they're playing before us. And then we jump on and do electronic. Same people, you know, and they rage to both.
That is rare, man.
And then they'll stay and then they'll sing to Amy Shark, which is amazing, you know,
And to be honest, I feel like it used to be that way here more than it is now. And I don't know why that changed.
like a separation of
I don't know. I mean,
genres.
maybe it's just, you know, that the electronic scene did get so much bigger here in recent years, and people are more knowledgeable and maybe more specialized. But I do kind of miss that. Like, I'm glad to hear that's still happening somewhere in the world.
It is, yeah, and it's awesome. And
Yeah.
again, you know, big shout out to Triple J to make sure there's a diversity on
Yeah, they really play such a wide
everything.
range.
You know, they could do a country song right after metal, and then they play sicko mode
Yeah, I love
right
that.
after, and you just have to deal with it. You enjoy it in your drive to work. You know, it's
Well, I
awesome.
mean, that's exactly how my brain works. Like exactly what you're talking about. Like that's something I would do. And
Yeah.
something I do all the time. So I love hearing that that's still out there, man.
it's awesome.
And I think that's a DJ mentality too, right? Is that it's not so much about exactly what it sounds like, but it's about the energy and the vibe, and you know,
And just
that's-
moods,
100%.
you know?
Yeah, those connections that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You know, the way you curate it in your own mind. Yeah, I love that, man. And so for you guys, you know, once you started coming over here, was it the EP you did with Mad Decent that really kind of like established a foothold here, or had that already happened earlier for you?
That happened hang on, I'm just
Just
trying
after.
to work out the times. No, just before. We released the Mad Decent EP, and then we came over and we did the Troyboi tour.
Right.
So
And that was the Fracture EP, right?
that was the
Fracture,
Fracture
yeah.
EP, yeah. So, I mean, I honestly think what speaks in America is touring and playing shows.
Yeah.
You know, people want to see you up there. And, you know,
And
obviously...
America's big.
America's huge.
Massive.
And obviously you need music. You know, you need music out there. But I think just playing shows and getting in front of people and creating that face-to-face memory and connection is how you know, win hearts in America.
And that Troyboi tour, I mean, that was, you know, months long, right? That was like a long...
It's like 3 months on
3
a tour
months,
bus.
yeah, so all over the country.
We did 35 shows, I think.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. Does
Which
any-
was amazing just to start our time in America. Just,
right. I
just
was
see
going to
the whole
ask,
country.
I mean, did anything stick out? Were you surprised by anything? Any memorable shows?
We were fans singing our music in
Montreal.
Montreal.
Oh,
we-
yeah.
It's weird. Some cities just have a really strong fan base and other ones don't. Like,
Yeah,
just like
I've-
randomly.
Smarter people than me can probably explain that, but I've never been able to understand why. Because it's the same for any artist. You know, it's like, well, why do I have so many fans in Milwaukee? You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Apparently, we have a lot of fans in Poland and Germany too.
Oh,
We've yet to
that's
test that
dope.
out.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's just a lot of shows, and they're all amazing in their own way. But the thing that stuck out the most for me was just how awesome it was to be. There was 2 tour buses. It was like 20 something crew.
Amazing.
It was just like a big family for 3 months, and it just became our
good.
life. It was awesome, yeah.
The tour life, especially the bus life, man, it's there's nothing else like it. And you can try to explain it to people, but I think
It sounds awful when you explain it.
It really
well,
does.
yeah, that too.
Right?
And also, like,
You
I'm
can't
not
actually
rushing to
shower.
go back on a 3-month tour.
But then if I'm on it,
But,
right?
you know, as an experience, it was incredible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that I think binds musicians together, those kinds of shared experiences.
Totally.
Because it's like living in a weird alternate dimension for a few months.
There's a lot
you
of
know?
horror stories though, with like, you know, tour buses being like, you know, people party so late, and if you want to go to sleep, you cannot.
It's
But
very important to get along with those people. It's if you don't get along with somebody, then yeah, it can
the whole
be
Troyboi
bad.
crew, amazing. We slept exactly. Everybody just went to bed at the same time. Everybody was considerate. You know, it's awesome.
Well, and you guys went on to collaborate with Troyboi. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly you guys got along.
That was after playing Mortal Kombat 2, and I got fully smashed by him.
Really?
He's so
he's
good at
pretty
that.
weaponous.
Just the DC versus what?
Yeah, the Justice Legends.
Justice Legends,
League.
yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah, he beat my Superman with Batman.
what an asshole.
Yeah, I'm like a super alien, and he beat me with a human.
You should be ashamed.
I'm very ashamed. That's one of the reasons why I'm practicing Mortal Kombat right now. So
Are you really?
Troy, if you're listening to this, rematch, all
That's
right?
amazing. Well, and was anything you worked on that tour? Is that what ended up becoming the collab that's on the Sarawak EP now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we started the idea on the tour bus for
Finished
sure.
in China.
Because I think that's an interesting thing that I don't think everyone understands is that sometimes you can start something and not finish it for years afterwards, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So how did that particular collab with Troyboi, how did that come about over the years?
Knocked on the door of his tour bus room and said, "Oi, Troy."
Send me the stems.
Yeah.
after losing, he goes, all right, I'm going to work on music. I was like, sweet. Let's look at some stems. Fletcher looked at some demos. I looked at some. He looked at some. We swapped. I gave him a loop. He gave me his, and I was like, let's work on this one instead. That was pretty much it. He had like a hip hop beat and him whistling with him humming.
Oh, yeah.
Like, at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
So it was that lead that you hear, and then we swapped it out with a synth. No back and forth. Once only.
Really?
We had the demo. It was tight already. Send it over. You clean it up, put our ideas in there, and then send it back to him. He goes, not even going to touch it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we dabbled like a lot over the year.
Well, I was going to say,
2
that,
years,
why did it take a year?
You just needed to sit on it. So
Yeah.
we worked on it in China. We were like referencing and working on it in Indonesia.
We played it live a couple times too.
Yeah, played it out, test it, tweak things. Even here when we were touring in the States, we worked on it, and then finally decided that let's call it done.
Yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough. Is that how a lot of your guys' collaborations have come about? Just kind of that organic, like
Always organic,
yeah.
yeah. It's never like manager reaches out and decides.
It's very difficult, I feel, to get,
well, with producers especially.
Yeah, that can be true.
kind of like an arranged marriage.
It is, but I mean, some people do that, man. I friends
know.
of mine have basically dates set up for them, you know?
Hey, if that's your thing, that's cool, you know?
We've done that before, but we've just never released a track from that. Because
I've never been in an arranged marriage before.
Yeah. How about as far as working with vocalists, and is it the similar?
Sometimes it's tougher with vocalists. Like, for example, with Claire Ridgely, she's in Montreal. And so, we reached out over the internet. But since then, when we were in Montreal touring, we caught up, hung out, didn't do any music.
Yeah.
And she works with another guy as well. And so we hung out with him. He's come to hang out with us in LA. And we just think it's really important to do non-music stuff
Related
before
things,
or at least definitely after, just to get the relationship and make it, fun.
100%. I
Yeah.
mean, that's part of doing this show for me is to be able to break out and kind of relate to musicians on a different level.
Instead of
Trying to
just
collab,
jumping in the studio cold,
You trying to collab? Or?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. That's a good start.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Want to collab, bro?
Yeah, that was good. You slid that in there. And so let's talk about the new EP as well. It's the Sarawak. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Sarawak. Some people say Sarawak. Fletcher sometimes says that.
Okay.
Sarawak. It's
Sarawak.
more an American way of saying it.
Right.
Sarawak.
Sarawak,
That's Malaysian.
So
Sarawak.
what about this time in your lives or your careers? What made you want to sort of bring it back home and because titling the EP after where you grew up, that's a strong move. So I'm curious, like,
It's a flex.
yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. And what was happening in your careers, in your lives, that this sort of seemed like the right time to bring it back home?
Just coming from where we were talking about before, having demos sitting in your computer for, a year minimum, you got up to 3 years. We Fletcher and I were just getting kind of stale. It just feels stale to jump into a studio and sit down and go like, hey, we got to write music today. We got to write. We got to. That's the problem. We got to write music.
When it's a job, an
Right?
obligation, yeah.
I think that then we decided like, hey, let's just do something different. And many people do that too, I think also inspired by Flume, he goes to like Mexico by himself.
We had Bauer went to
Bauer, yeah.
somewhere.
Oh yeah, he went
With the Red Bull
a few
thing.
different weird
yeah,
places.
Japan, he went to Dubai. And
Yeah,
Jordan?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
No, I don't know.
But-
It was
yeah.
And we're just like, hey, maybe my hometown where, world music is a thing there too. Why don't we just do that and just book the flight and got a videographer and try to document a thing and boom, we're gone.
Yeah, honestly, we didn't really even work on our laptops while we were there. It was all about just like a mental refresh. It was eating good food, going out away from society, off the grid.
You guys, were you feeling a little burnt out?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of. I mean,
100%.
it's weird because we've been touring in hotels and airports, and the solution was to travel again,
Of course.
which was weird. But I'd never been to Morgan's hometown, and I really wanted to see it. And so we went and just did a lot of really unique. Just tried to have unique experiences that you wouldn't just get. For me, get out of my comfort zone a little bit. I mean, in Morgan, that's his home.
like what, for example? What are we talking about?
Well, so we went and stayed with a tribe. It was a 5-hour drive into the jungle, and then you take a boat for an hour. And we stayed there, and there's literally nothing around for miles. There's no electricity. There's no cell reception. Yeah. The only way to get in and out is on like a little, well, not little, these long canoes.
Sketchy
it was like
canoes.
extremely. There's mosquitoes the size of
Coins, man.
Giant coins, and there's bugs everywhere. Like I was taking a shower in the one shower, which is cold.
Yeah.
And like literally, there's like a black widow spider.
Oh my God.
A stick insect the size of my
face.
entire.
Yeah, it was
my
my
God.
face. It was in front of me.
And literally probably like 20 to 30 different bugs that I'd never seen in my life, just dangling above me. I was
That
like,
would be as well.
it's gonna
the
be a
wood
quick
eating.
shower.
Yeah.
The wood chipping bee too, the size of like the head of this mic.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And it floats in front of you, and but the buzzing is the scariest thing you'll ever hear.
That's
But hey,
nice.
these people live out there, and we had
They
like
seem
an
fine.
amazing home cooked meal. We actually bought some like stuff at this market on the way. We had like worms,
like a tribe offering.
snakes.
Oh, wow.
and they cooked us chicken neck and
Yeah,
they
how
cooked
were
the python.
you received by the tribe? Like, did they understand what you were there
Oh, absolutely.
for?
Yeah.
We had to ask permission with the filming. Again, like because that's my home. These are very separate and very different people.
Right.
A lot of the tribes people over the years have grown to accept civilization. I think the first thing was Christianity first, and then civilization. But a lot of them there are still pagans or animists. Yeah, they kind of pray to rocks and plants and
Right.
trees. So very very different. So for me too, it's also an experience because we only sort of talk about them and you don't really stay there for a night. I've seen that village before,
Sure.
but being there and getting them to cook for us and seeing them how they live, it's almost like we take all these things in the States or in Australia for granted.
It's just something as simple as like there's no tables.
Right.
Yeah,
Like it's just and everything's constructed out of wood tied together with
rattan
like
vines.
some kind of vine rope, and you sit on the floor on mats and cook on the fire inside, and that's great because the smoke keeps all the bugs out.
right.
But you get fully smoked out too.
Yeah.
You smell like barbecue then.
The one generator for the entire village goes off at 10 p.m. and it's like 100 110 degrees at night
Amazing.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And you just sweat it out and enjoy the food and the company, and you're not on your phone or anything like that.
You can't.
So that was a wild experience.
Yeah.
And then we also did we tried to trek to this waterfall. And it took us 3 hours of traveling, and then we couldn't make it, and it started thunderstorming.
Oh,
and we
man.
got trapped out we were actually walking up the river, up these giant stones, and once it started raining,
Well, okay, let's get back.
we couldn't you couldn't walk anymore because the
Right.
rocks all were just slippery. So we pretty much just had to bail into the jungle, and then we're just kind of in the thick of it, trying to find our way back to
With
where
no
we
path
parked the car.
whatsoever.
wow.
That was a legit moment of panic.
Wow. And it was
Yeah.
just you guys and the videographer?
Oh, there's one more friend of ours.
Yeah, we had a few friends
Yeah.
come
He
along
fell.
for the trip.
There's a video of him going.
Yeah, it was very
slipping on a
sketchy,
rock
yeah.
with all the drone gear and
man.
our we were about to do a shoot there, like an interview, and he just all our clothes and the drone and the camera just went with him.
Yeah.
He saved it, but he was fully submerged. He's like a jungle guy. He I've tried to kill him many times. He cannot die. This man cannot die.
He literally slipped down this huge rock face into the water
And
of the
laughed.
river, and then just starts laughing hysterically. It was hilarious. But yeah, that was proper panic because it was like leeches dropping out of the trees and
Snakes.
snake season.
God damn.
If you don't get
just
out, there is a good chance of severe injury or death. There are people that have died at that waterfall.
Really?
From not listening to Mother Nature, trying to go against going against the grain, and Mother Nature is something you do not want to fuck with.
No, definitely not.
Not there. At least not there, you know?
Yeah. Well, and so after all of these experiences, coming back to civilization, getting back in the studio, all of that, what had changed for you? I mean, obviously you were taking field recordings while you were there, absorbing local culture and all of that. But, in terms of the writing process for the new EP, like what insight did that give you?
Well, what we found is that a lot of our tracks, we write the first 80% in the day. And then the last 20% we deliberate on for years. And what we really needed was help with that last, learning to just take a step back, take a break, reset the mind, and work out what we need to finish. And for example, the song Closure, we found we had a recording of these gongs being played at the village, and we laid that over the synth, and we put some jungle ambience in, and that kind of like wrapped that track up for us. And so it was things like that where we just needed that break and that refresher and that change of perspective, and okay, don't worry about the little things too much, because it taught us to sort of be in the moment a little bit more, because you can't really plan ahead in a place like Sarawak.
Also to listen to your own music and your own craft as a person and not as a producer. Right? There are times where, we just, listen, deliberate over this tiny synth sound that it isn't going to be a big thing in the, big picture with fans and when they're listening to music. So going to Sarawak and, kind of just taking us away from that one folder we have, and going back to listen to it and go to, actually, this is done. And with Closure with Ikali, we kind of put the ambience over the top and go, that's really all it needed was some texture. It was too clean before.
Yeah, and I think once music is rooted in a place or a memory too, like, you were saying the recording of the gong, and you hear that, and at least for you guys, I'm sure you think back to where you were when it was recorded. At least for me, little like signposts like that can make the vision for a song so much clearer, because then exactly what you said, you're not obsessing over one tiny snare sound.
Yeah.
It's more about the overall vibe.
It's the feel,
Yeah. Wrapping it all up, you guys are headed back to Australia. You're going to do the live tour. Is this going to be sort of the biggest tour for you thus
Absolutely,
far?
yeah. This is our biggest tour we've done yet. We're playing this venue called the Enmore in Sydney.
Oh, I know that venue.
Enmore Theatre, yep. It's like
that's a big
one. It's a
one.
pretty prestigious thing, so it's a big deal for us. To be able to sell out that venue would be amazing. And then also in our hometown Perth, we're playing... I think it's a 2,500 cap room, which is a really big deal as well. And I remember going to see some of my favorite, big artists at that venue.
Nero there, yeah.
So, world-class acts also played on that stage, which I looked up to when I was younger, and now we're going to go and play that same venue, which is just incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Yeah. And going forward, do you guys have any specific goals, any plans for the future, short term or long term? Like, obviously things are going extremely well, but I'm curious sort of where you see the project heading in the next, year or 2 years.
I think we need to take another trip.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that, we'll make this into I guess like a little thing that Slumberjack does. Even if it's somewhere, I guess, close to LA, like, go to Tulum or Colombia, Patagonia, something like that.
Yeah.
Or, Canada, like during winter where it's like icy cold, where your hard drives and your batteries don't work, Or, I don't know, Fletch and I talked about going to Mongolia too, which, my family has a ethnic bloodline too, and Tibet. That would be awesome.
Incredible, yeah. Well, and we should mention, there is a documentary series that you guys put out about going to Sarawak.
Yes.
And it seems, you're here doing the video blogging.
Yeah.
I like that you guys kind of keep the cinematic aspect of that going with your careers too,
Music and video is so tied together for us. So delivering the EP in the context of that trip with the visuals and the beautiful jungle canopies, and we've got a lot of amazing. The cinematographer we took with us was incredible and captured really great stuff, which we've put through all the visuals for everything, and it's the show visuals reflect the jungle.
It's
and
based on that.
It all kind of ties in for this big experience. Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to ask is not related, but you mentioned the collaborations you did with Ikali, who is also a former guest on this show. And I was just curious how you met him, how that came about. Because I think the one you guys did on his EP was probably my favorite off of that
Helios,
record.
yeah.
And, yeah, it's a great record, man.
We actually started the two ideas at the same time.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I actually met Ikali first before Fletcher did. He came to Perth for a show, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go, because we spoke on Twitter and Instagram for a while. So decided to go to his show, and I remember before his show, we went to a 7-Eleven and bought some Prosecco and some Aperol Spritz.
Yes.
And we went to the beach because we thought it was cool. I think that's a photo on Instagram of us being romantic and stuff. It was very windy. We finished both the bottles.
Yep.
Before the show.
I can visualize this right now.
And yeah, it's a fun one. It was, and then after that we met again, right? And when he came to Perth the second time, that's where we both.
Yeah, I met him in Vancouver actually. I think that was actually before.
No, after.
Oh, I don't know.
I got all my timelines mixed up. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Anyway, I played a festival up there called Faded. Morgan, unfortunately, had some visa issues. He couldn't make it.
I'm not a criminal. It was just a visa issue.
And, Carly's from Vancouver, so we hung out after the show. I was playing the after party.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I love that guy.
Shout out.
He just had us on a few dates of his bus tour as well.
Oh, how was that?
Yeah, it was great. It's good to be back on the bus.
Yeah.
Also,
good
1
to
week.
be, no showers for 3 days kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, that was the third day. It was definitely
Had to try not to sweat.
What, you weren't showering at the venue?
There was
some of these venues had no showers.
Yeah, okay.
It's just you got to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're clean people. You do a baby wipe shower or like a
Sure, yeah.
you
The
just gotta
hobo
do it.
shower.
Yeah,
as
hobo
we call
shower.
it. Yeah. Do it in the sink.
Yeah. It's pretty dark, but it gets the job done.
You don't know real happiness until the water from the shower head hits you after 3 days.
100%.
Just
Wipe away all your shame.
so good. Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Before we get out of here, is there anything else you guys want to put out there? Anything we haven't covered? Anything that people should know about?
Fletcher has lice.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
You keep telling people this. Like, I don't know why.
I think it's a funny.
not true, obviously.
It's not true, but it's a funny thing to do to people. Here's a trick. If you guys want to play a prank on your friends, just kind of go next to the person you guys just met and then whisper in their ear and go like, "Hey, just if he ever feels weird about anything, just know that he has lice. Don't bring it up. He gets really weird about it." And both of you are in two separate realities now,
Right.
and everyone's
you
weird
just
about everything.
perpetuate the rumor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's terrible.
So we're actually also just about to head back to America on the North American segment of the Sarawak tour.
Nice.
I think we're doing 15 shows. So those dates will be all up on our website and Facebook.
This
and
is our
Bandcamp.
first ever North American headline tour.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, proper Slumberjack headline.
Doing it ourselves.
Yeah. And actually, we have some awesome acts coming. Hex Cougar is going to be
Hex
supporting
Cougar.
on a bunch of dates.
He's incredible,
Which is super
yeah.
dope. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see him play too.
Hell yeah. That's amazing. Well, I'm glad to see you guys doing so well. The new EP, I think it's fantastic. The last question I'm going to ask, I ask this at the end of every episode. Simple question. You don't have to think about it too hard. Kind of the first thing that pops into your head. Just a time in your life, and this could be recently or it could be from when you were a kid, when in a moment, music really deeply affected you. And that could mean, change the way you thought about something. It could be tied to an important moment in your life. It could just be a song you liked on the radio. And it doesn't have to be significant. Kind of just the first thing that pops into your head.
Well, yeah, for me was looking at that kid play the piano. It's such a sticking point. Not sticking point. It's a turning point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that changed everything. I was going to be an accountant. I was going to be the best damn tax accountant you'll ever see. But nope, not from that moment onwards.
Nothing else would do.
Nothing else mattered anymore.
I love that.
Mine's definitely less profound. Just a memory I had of driving home in the rain one time, and Aston Shuffle's song Comfortable came on, which I love. And I just remember just feeling like it was just so epic. And I realized, the power of different chord progressions and how, such subtleties can make them so powerful. And yeah, it was raining and it was pretty epic.
I know. I love that because I think everybody can relate to, being out in the rain, hearing a song, you get that sort of cinematic feel. But what I like about what you said is you went a step further and you were thinking about how to actually put the pieces together, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how are these moments actually created?
Always decrypting everything.
But that's beautiful because I think once you start doing that, that's the key to doing what we do, right? Is figuring out, I feel this way, but why do I? And how can I make other people feel this way?
Yeah.
I blame the notebook. Rain and good music, and I did that to this crush that I had when I was a teenager. It went terribly.
Wait, what do you mean?
I played on a speaker. Beautiful by Jesse McCartney. Beautiful Soul.
No, like you brought a boombox?
Yeah. It was, oh boy. Holy shit, dude. Dude, what I was like, wow. What was I doing? And now it's on record, and I'm glad it's out there though. Whew.
Oh my God.
I'm not a prisoner of that thought anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I need to pee. So.
Oh, do it, man. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just going to wrap it up.
Fletcher needs to pee and he has lice.
Well, I love that story. Yes. Perfect. Yeah. What I like about that story is that's like the reverse of Fletcher's story where you tried to recreate the feeling in the moment and got it totally wrong.
Yeah, fucked it all up. It was a outdoor basketball court too. And then it was rain. And then everybody was playing basketball in the rain, and this girl was also in the rain. I was like, hey, it would be sick to profess my love to this girl who's 3 years older than me, Oh, God.
Back to the awkward musician, man.
Yep, still there. I'm still that kid.
All right, well, this was great, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And shout out to Fletcher who's peeing.
You.
Peace. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Slumberjack. So good to hang out with you guys. So good to see you. Hopefully I can catch you again when you're swinging through North America. For everybody out there listening, you can go catch them too. They are going on tour. Follow the link in the description of this episode where you can go get all the dates, all the music. You can check out the new documentary, everything about Slumberjack you could possibly want. My name is Willy Joy. That's it for this week. Another episode in the can. We're coming up quick on the 2-year anniversary of this show. I can't wait to show you guys what I got planned. Until then, I hope everybody out there is doing well. Take care of yourself. Go out there, have some fun, be around people you love, and that's it. I'll talk to you next week. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.